This is dead money. Dead money with dead Arfid. Oh, yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about some poker again. Again, can you believe it? a lot of a lot of fucking stuff. A lot of fucking stuff this week. Jesus. Just yak, yak, yak. Poker, crazy hands, stupid people. That's what goes on. That's why we keep showing up. We want to see more of more and more of the next shit. But all right, here we go. So first we're gonna wind back the clock to last Friday night. Not the Katy Perry song, the night I played poker. Things started out fine. I think I was winning a little bit. Then I got into a spot where this fish, mentioned him the other day, he's from Florida. We'll just call him Florida. Florida opens to 15 in late position, and he'd been using 20 at times. So, just whenever I see people suddenly size down randomly, I really widen my 3-bet range. So I'm in the small blind here with threes. I make it 65. But the big blind cold calls, and Florida folds. Now, 3-betting and having a cold caller behind you is something that happens relatively often at 2-5, especially as the games get juicier. Because it's kind of bad, and when the games are juicy, bad things happen, so you see people do this. But the big blind seemed to be someone who had some know-how, but maybe not as much as he'd thought. There's obviously going to be a bit of doubt about that, since once he cold calls a small blind 3-bet out of the big blind, since there's only going to be so many hands he's ever going to want to do this with. Flop comes King, Jack, 6, 2 hearts and a club. Now, most often when I 3-bet pre and get a cold caller who has position on me, I will do a bit of checking if my hand is on the cusp of strong and weak, aka marginal, but there's not much cusp going on here. My hand pretty much stinks, but the board is good for me, so I bet 85 and he calls. The turn is the 8 of clubs now, so now there's 2 flush draws. I bet 300, close to the pot. He thinks for a little while, does a whole card recheck, and he calls again. And I probably should expect him to call again because a lot of the folds in his range, like, all the small middling pocket pairs, are often just going to fold the flop. The river is another heart, and it's a 6, so it pairs the board. I have the 3 of hearts, so alright, I block 1 flush combo, ace 3 of hearts. Pot has like 900, and I'm the one who created this. I got 1,500 left, and he covers me. And just thinking more and more again about how this hand ended, it's really sickening me. Because when people have either flush draws or pair plus draws, any pair plus hand, they don't really think for very long when they've been bet into, at least in a spot like this one where the 3-better whom they have position on is continuing to barrel into them with big sizes on boards that are supposed to favor them. They don't think, they just call. They know they're calling and they just call quickly. He didn't do that. And I was even taking note that he didn't do that in the moment. And if this tendency holds true again, then he probably doesn't have a flush and won't be able to stand a third and final large-sized barrel, whether it's a jam or not. And that's what it was going to be. I mean, you got to go at least the pot here if you're going to keep going. I was not looking to get the showdown with pocket threes or look to bluff catch with it. But I guess, look, sometimes it's just hard. And I've been telling myself and others for years I'd rather bluff and lose than check and give up and lose at showdown to some fuckstick hand that probably folds if you push the button one more time. But this was not an exciting situation to be in, because if he doesn't fold flop, then now his range is pointing more towards draws or pairs that want to see another card because they're either top pair or have a lot of improving cards on the turn. But when he calls the turn this slowly, that makes me think he shouldn't be drawing, which maybe means he has a strong top pair, but it shouldn't be ace-king. I mean, this guy I'd expect a cold 4-bet that pre. So it's a little hard to figure this one out here. There's a lot of kind of like contradicting things going on, things that I'm used to preparing for, used to expecting, but everything is just kind of going in two different directions. So who knows? I mean, maybe he is drawing and it's just timing his decision wisely with the amount of time he takes calling the turn. And that is something most of the pool really doesn't think to do. I have to know that this is at least possible, even if it's often correct to assume that he isn't drawing. But his range has a lot of shit in it besides, top pairs or heart draws. I mean, he could have the clubs too and have missed the other flush draw. Ace Jack, Jack 10, Queen Jack of clubs, Ace Queen, Ace 10 of clubs, Queen 10 of clubs. So 3 of those hands I beat and 3 of them don't. But it's better just to bet into all of them and, in the hopes of bluffing him off his second pair of hands and also take away his bluff with the other hands. Because, when you say it out loud, you check, you want him to bluff, but, not really that much here. I mean, there's a higher chance of this bluff working, Do you want to hang on with this freaking hand? I mean, I think it's super unlikely he has a full house. He didn't raise his head on either the flop or turn with the board being this coordinated. And if I do fire another big shell of this, I should probably just expect a mix of calls and folds. But something was telling me to do it right now. Trying to get a live read and feel out the situation. It was like telling me to do it, but pulling the trigger can be really hard sometimes. Because as much as I hate myself when I check down and lose to fucking bullshit, which seems to happen most of the time, doesn't feel so good either when you hand over your stack. But look, it's critical to play well in these big pots, especially for me, since I finally realized how much I am constantly trying to make the pot big, and I'm glad, because people play bad. If you're going to play against bad people, don't you want the average size of the pot you play with them to be as big as you can sensibly make it? I mean, you should. Just as long as you play well yourself. And it seems like a substantial number of times I give up, they beat me with some bottom-rung garbage. And then it seems like a substantial number of times I talk myself into doing it, they have something that's virtually unfoldable, or better, or whatever. Maybe I'm not doing it as much as I think. Maybe it's not as costly as much as I think, but whatever. I blew it again, and I checked, and lost to king, queen off, no heart. So, now we see what his whole dilemma was. I mean, his turn wasn't debating a draw, wasn't debating making a pretty interesting bluff raise with, ace jack of clubs or queen jack of clubs, something to rep a set where he blocks sets, has outs. I mean, just trying to get a lot of aces or ace king to fold. I mean, he wasn't contemplating that. That'd be a pretty sick move, actually. But yeah, I mean, he couldn't have been thinking about raising turn. I mean, he was probably considering folding because he knows he might see another big bet, but he just figures if he's getting this far, spewing this hard before the flop, and having this hand, yeah, he probably shouldn't fold for 300 yet. We'll see what happens next. But then when the hand is over, everyone is saying, oh, yeah, I can't fire that third barrel because, now I have to check because of da-da-da. And, and I'm thinking, nah. I don't think I have to just fucking check. I mean, it's a tough spot. But I felt like something was going on. Something that was, not hoping I'd bet, and he wasn't hoping I'd bet. So, of course, the guy in this big blind who won, then he said, oh, yeah, if he jams, there's no way I'm calling. And I believe him. And I know I can't look at this decision and think of it as a direct $900 error. I know it's not black and white like that. And, a lot of people probably look at their hands that go wrong in these spots that way. But it's not true at all. I mean, you got the invisible numbers floating around the table, and they decide how much that mistake was actually worth. Well, not decide. I mean, they just whatever. I'm high. The bottom line is, though, it's had I fired and had he actually folded, he probably would have. The black and white truth is, for right now, in the moment, today in life, here we are, that's a $900 pot I'd have dragged in. So, That's why it gets people sick about it, myself included. I came pretty fucking relatively close to doing it. I mean, I don't know how close, but I was not that far away from just going for it. You know, I've done this enough times where this bluff is not going to go down because I give away something with nerves. I trust I'll be fine holding the face and that he just has to figure it out for himself if he wants to push the button or not. And the vibe is always there to be felt. If he doesn't want you to blast, like the energy is there for you to feel it out and then just run him over, choke him out. That's why players get so upset with themselves when they don't follow through on a bluff in these spots. Like, it was there. And on the flip side, if he's waiting for you to bluff so he can catch you, then that energy of him is there too for you to think of and realize don't do it. And when you get picked off going for it there, I mean, you feel just as dumb. So I was pretty tilted by that, but nothing I can do now. Game is still great, and I at least have the benefit of getting more action than I should when I have something. Which is why, when you lose bluffs, it still has value. Bluffs are investments. Obviously, you'd rather them just fold and win the pot, but hey, if you lose, you can still get it back other ways. And this is something that so many players can just either never ever get, or at least get over their fears of bluffing enough so that they embrace this. People are so scared to bluff because they just, I think it's they fear that they're going to look stupid or, you know, that they're just going to feel stupid. I mean, I think it's just once these people heard that you can win at poker without really having to bluff that much, then so many of them were just like, okay, fuck it, that's all I'm doing. If that's all I have to do to win, then that's all I'm going to do. And it's not even necessarily laziness. It's just a way to just like get around their fear and just play the way that's like, okay, just play percentages and win. But this isn't a sport where winning $500 and winning $2,000 are the same thing because they're both victories. No. It's all about the margin of defeat, not just the W and the L. How big was it? But some people, whether they're fish or pros, they are not scared of it. I mean, I think we all get scared sometimes trying to bluff, thinking about bluffing. But you know something? It's no more scared than we do about making a really huge call with something that's pretty marginal. None of us just want to torch off piles like an idiot. But the people who are like consistently having an eye open and following through on big bluffs or big calls or big whatever, they aren't scared. But they're not necessarily being brave either. They're just being smart. They're just thinking about the game and the hand. There's no emotion involved of bravery or fear. They're just, what makes the most sense to do right now? And if that means piling the whole stack in with nothing, because you know this guy just probably isn't calling, then all right, that's what it's going to be. That's what a true winning mentality looks like at poker because it's emotionless. So, all right, the game continues. Started to run a little bad at the worst time when you have an aggro image. Had kings cracked by nines in a spot in a 3-bet pot where he was cold calling pre, just another punt. But he flopped a set and slow played it, and I didn't have to double him up because an ace came on the turn and the river. So, all right, take a little rebate, I guess, for the hand what you got there. And then that same guy limps, the button limps, the small blind limps. I got Queen Jack offsuit in the big blind, and this fucking hand has been something of a puzzlement to me for years. Like, this hand seems to come up in so many spots at 2-5, big or small, where I just never know what to do because it seems too strong to be passive, but it also seems too weak to just like start going too wild with. And this is one of those spots. Raising here isn't that great, but I don't want to just fucking check. So fuck it, I make it 45, because the first limper sucks, he's not super deep. He folds, and I figure that's it, because the button limper, I mean, I don't know what his deal is, but he's trying extremely hard, doing whatever he does. He's not an impressive poker player. He's like some 40s, 50-something looking guy with a beard. I mean, he was deep tonight, though, so he's winning. And then, of course, he calls. And the flop comes, we're heads up, comes Jack 8-3 rainbow. And I check, and he pots it going 105. Okay, call. Now this guy is, he's generally pretty nitty, but I also see him do these weird, spazzy things sometimes. Not necessarily for like piles and piles, but just, I don't know. Once in a while, he just like, it's weird. He's dumb. So I call. It just feels odd already. I don't know where this is going, but it just feels weird already. Very weird. Turner is a 7. So 10-9 is the nuts. I check, and he quickly pots it, 3-15. And my brain immediately said fold because I can see this guy limping 3s or 10-9 suited on the button now as a set of the nuts. And this size is going to be heavy for value quite a bit. But a lot of times when these 2-5 fucking fish bluffs are made, oftentimes the behavior is just kind of like, it's just very herky-jerky with this sudden quick vomiting of chips into the pot. Whereas when they have it, they seem to just be a lot more methodical, taking their time, looking very serious, picking the perfect size to get you to pay them. So, something felt fucked up about this, but I called again. Though I don't think I'll be calling anything significant on the river. But the river is like a 5 or a 6. It changed nothing. I check, and he immediately checks back, but shows his hand first. And you know what this guy had? I'm going to give you one guess, so take a few seconds. A set of 7s. This guy turned a set of 7s. And not only does he not bet this river, he checked so anxiously he showed his hand first, since that's what that means every time a person who does that. If they check in position by turning their hand over, that tells you, win or lose, they're just glad to be at showdown and that this hand is over. So I felt like I read this whole hand pretty well. He did his weird spaz move by blasting the flop with this hand, which he 100% doesn't even want to be doing because he doesn't really know why he's doing it, but he's doing it anyway. Then suddenly he gets to slam on the brakes when he drills the fuck out of this turn and change directions completely in the purpose of value. Then he pots it again because look what I found. But when he gets as safe a river as he could possibly ask for, he doesn't try to get another street from me. Not even a little one. Just checks and does so by showing first in position. So I see why I called him again. My brain said fold because he was blasting so hard, and it was a value bet. But, I mean, he just seemed really anxious to have this hand be over with because look how he just played this hand on the river. And we haven't even talked about the pre-flop yet. Limping 7s on the button? After this fucking dummy with only like 5 to 700 just open limps? Do you see why 2-5 is such a fucking soft-ass game? Look at how these people play. Look at what they're doing. These are fucking regs, these people. They're trying to win. They're trying to win. And look what they're capable of bringing in even a single hand. You know, maybe he just had some of that, like, you know, last 10 or 15 minute anxiety that I've talked about in other episodes, and he just couldn't control himself throughout any point in this hand. He didn't know what he was doing, he didn't know what he wanted to do, didn't know what he wanted. Just bang, 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 check. Oh, I have a set. All right. So I'm just going to forgive myself for that. I mean, look, I know pocket 7s isn't a royal flush waiting in the wings, but oh my God, I mean, can you have more of a like standard automatic raise in this situation? This like late-ish position limp. I mean, how often does he think he's getting limp raised to such a big size that he can't afford to just raise on the button? Why shouldn't he do that? What is he, afraid I'm going to like 3-bet him too much and he doesn't want to play a 3-bet pot with 7s in position deep? This whole thing just tells you a lot about what this guy, he has to think these things of me. He's got to be pretty fucking scared if he's not willing, not even willing to try to get a third street on the river with a turned fucking set when he checks back in position. We haven't played a lot, but we've played enough where this guy knows who I am. And he showed me so much fear and respect by doing that. But it's just so fucking unthinkably idiotic. If I 3-bet you, then I 3-bet you and just deal with it then. You got the button and a good hand and a fish limping in front of you. How much easier does this need to be? Just raise! Inflate the pot! Take command of it! What is so fucking difficult about that? I mean, this guy clicked about as much as you can click, and look how much fucking money he won in the hand. Gets pot on the flop, pot on the turn. Gets way more than he should on either of the first two streets. Then when he has this biggest cinch in the world, now he decides to check river. And the funniest part is like, well, how many people who saw this and probably thought, hey, he caught the 7 and played the hand pretty well, other than not betting the river. He was so sure he would never get called by worse on the river that he just checked. And to be fair, if he had bet anything substantial, he's right, I would have folded. But that's not the point. That doesn't make his check good. That is a terrible mindset. He's gonna make that mistake in other spots too. And in those spots, he is gonna cost himself money. So, all right, nice hand, I guess. Just be passive with the button, then spaz on the flop for no reason, then blast again when all of a sudden you have it, and then check gin on the river. Poor guy, couldn't make quads. So then Florida, who, by the way, he was the one who made the comment that I mentioned a couple days ago when he said he didn't value raise the river with what was a very easy hand to value raise with. Just take my word for it, because he didn't think he had any implied odds in making a raise on the river. So he limps. I have ace queen of diamonds. I lost in this game. I have ace queen of diamonds. I make it 30. A new player joined the big blinds, and Florida calls. The big blind was new, but he also seemed like he was going to be action. So flop is king jack 8 rainbow, and Florida donks 50. I didn't catch any diamonds, but this bet just looks weak because of the size, and I didn't know Florida was from Florida yet. But now that we know he was, I mean, yeah, this is something I'd expect to see. So, but anyway, this is at best, absolute best, a weak king, and that's probably a stretch. I'll have him beat here sometimes. So I make it 165, and the big blind thought for a little while, but then he folded. And that's important because with his timing and all the thought he put in, he possibly folded a king. I mean, you never really know with these people sometimes, but just keep it in the back of your mind. Turn is a 9, and now there's 2 spades, and he checks. I bet 300, he calls pretty fast. The river is another spade, and it's a 5, and he checks again pretty fast, like just kind of a routine check. And I am not going to fuck this up again. I think because I didn't fire before, that firing now will give me even more credit for, this time I have it. Like, I won't fire, if I fire the big one, I have it, And plus, the guy just seems very light anyway. He was sitting there with this dumb look on his face that had told me, all right, here comes the big one, and I probably can't call it. And I knew I was going to do it, but I still took my time. And then he started looking at me. Not like a hard look, but his body and his head just kind of moved a little bit to face me, turned a little bit. And I'm looking at him peripherally, and I think when people do this, it's just usually a sign of weakness. So, but that was just gravy. I mean, I knew I'm going with it. So I finally just rip it in. It's a little over pot. And he says, immediately, that's a good bluff. Picks up his cards, looks out at the board. I mean, he's not calling. Then he show folds the 10-9 off with a spade. So I did have him beat on the flop. He had the open ender. Then he caught a pair to go with it. But he bricked the river. And actually had a much more interesting hand to call with than he realized with his flush blocker and straight blocker. I'm not saying he should have called. I'm just saying it's one more thing he was oblivious to. And starting with the fact, of course, that open limping and calling a raise with 10-9 off from any position, never mind early position, isn't that much brighter than over limping the button with pocket sevens. So then start people trying to get me to show a bluff, like, show. And this time I let them goad me into doing it. I think the table already thought I was aggressive. The game was really juicy. I saw no reason not to. So now Florida sees that if he had called, he would have won a huge pot. And even though he didn't exactly have a monster, he felt like we all do when we get shown a bluff. And that means no matter how unexploited we actually were for whatever hand we folded, we still feel like we should have called it because the writing was on the wall somewhere and we didn't see it. And he took this one, I don't know, somewhat personally in some kind of way because he commented a few times over the next few hours. He's like, I'm going to catch you next time. Like, I'm going to catch you. And I've seen plenty of players, whether they're facing me or someone else that they think is aggressive. Once they do, they just throw the switch and will never fold to you again under any circumstances. And it's a pretty sick spot to be in because if you can catch any sort of rush against them or even just one good spot, they're just going to give it to you. But I've never seen anyone throw the switch as much as this guy in terms of like mentality. I mean, he was not going to fold anything to me. It didn't matter to him if you took every dollar and all of his clothes. I mean, he is not going to let you bluff him again. So then there were some other hands I won or lost, but I didn't have anything any of those times. You know, like combo draws that bricked or ace king that bricked. But the times I won, Florida was making comments. He's like, you're just going to let him barrel you? He's like, or there was one hand I lost where the guy check called twice and then suddenly led the river. And it was a spot where I couldn't really get creative, so I just folded. And then he's like, if you had anything, it was good. Like, he's just barreling. So, God, I mean, just one time, let me really get it against this guy or just anything decent. Because he's, like, got the door open to be totally turned inside out. And then, of course, I went completely card dead. I mean, dead for like 2 hours. And we were straddling every hand. And the game was amazing. And I'm just stuck and having to watch. So, one hand I straddle, and the guy who I chickened out of bluffing when he had the king-queen off, he raised blind. So it's 20 to go now. Get a couple calls. Now, finally, I have something. I have Jack-9 suited, I think clubs. 3-bet to probably like 120. And no one called except Florida. And I had position on him this hand. And I flop top pair, Jack-6 deuce, 2 hearts. He check calls 200. Pot is up to 700. Turns to 7 hearts, and he checks, and I should just bet again. And if he raises, fine. Just fold. Because I don't think this guy was really looking to out-bluff me or anything. He was just looking to call down as long as he could anytime he got the chance. So yeah, I mean, it's not an awesome turn card, but when you consider how wide he's going to call, it makes it far less imposing, so I should just keep betting. But I guess because I'd been so quiet for a while, I thought, even though like I knew how much he had it in for me, but I thought with me being quiet, I was like torn. I thought he could adjust and give me credit, but no, nothing had changed at all. He's just calling me for the rest of his life, period, end of sentence. But then the river is an offsuit ace, and he checks. And now this I don't think I should be betting. So I check, and I lose to ace-6 of clubs. So called me with a pair on the flop. He got a bad turn card too. And then he said, good check, I was trying to trap you, on the river. So I was unlucky to lose the hand on the river after out-flopping him. Not that he's not going to get punished extremely brutally hard playing the hand the way he did, But then I got lucky to get away with this mistake of not betting the turn because when I asked him, are you folding the turn? He said no. So then I go card dead again. Not for as long, but again. But then I wake up with aces. Okay. Florida raises to 25 from up front. I make it 80. 3 people call, including this one guy who was stuck pretty bad. In fact, he'd already been stacked twice and he just rebought. But then Florida folds. Go figure. So we go 4 ways, 345 in the pot. Flop is Jack-6-6, 2 hearts. And I have the ace of hearts. And lately I've been trying to get myself to be less scared when a pair flops, when I have a big overpair, or at least a, not like when deuces flop, but like just anything that's like somewhat imaginable of someone getting to the flop with. I don't think checking these flops are necessarily bad. I just think I've been doing it too much. So now I bet 150, and I'm okay with what happens here because I think 6x will not be waiting to raise in this spot, and I also think the hands that are worse are going to be very unlikely to raise. So I get one call, and then the guy who's been losing a lot, he overcalls. All right. Turns to 10 of spades, 2 flush draws again. They check again. Now I bet 450. The first guy folds, and then the really big fish calls again. And the river was the 7 of spades, so a backdoor flush gets in, but it was going to be pretty hard for him to have that. And now he bets 500. And he has like 300 or 400 left. And the pot is massive at this point. I think I'm getting over 4-1 to call. And I really don't see how I can fold this. I mean, you can make great live read. I mean, I think it's just the perfect scenario between the line he took and this size for a fish to just show up with something idiotic where he's just torching all the way and now is just bluffing into aces. So I'm just going to have to make him show it to me. So I call quad sixes. Well, no wonder nobody raised before the river and probably would have just done so on the flop with a 6 because this guy had all of the sixes. So this is just a bad night. I got in for 3,400. Usually I don't like to go past like 2,500 unless it's a really golden spot like this. But I was down to 1,000. I didn't feel like topping up to 1,500. I was just going to let the night be at this point. Be happy if I can salvage anything. I started to finally get a little something going, but then everything fell apart right after that. I mean, it's just everything I was doing in the game, just nothing was working. It was one of these nights where just so many things go wrong. There were multiple times where it was just like the first time in a million times where I don't do something that was very minor and it ended up costing me like a double up. I mean, just really ridiculous things. And then I had pocket eights in my straddle and called an open raise to 30. We go 4 ways. Florida is in the big blind and it comes queen jack 8, 2 clubs. So pretty sick. Got my set, even though there's a lot of things that can happen in this hand and can go in a lot of different directions. And I almost donked this flop with Florida still in the hand. And in this game, especially with Florida there, I mean, that would be totally fine because the button may not c-bet that wide on this flop into 3 players. So I check and he checks. Then Florida check calls the turn from me. Finally, it was a 7, pretty huge brick. So we're heads up and the river is a 10, so any 9 is a straight. But he check called again like 1/3 pot and he lost. And if I donk the flop, I'd probably just get 3 solid streets. Or like more like 2.5 at least. That's what I originally wanted to do and just, went with the standard check and, just a rough night. One more really interesting spot, though, from it. This Asian girl reg, who I see in little streaks, she raised to 30 under the gun. Straddle still on. I 3-bet ace-king off on the button to 100, and she calls. And she's been, competent from what I've seen. I mean, she also seems pretty nitty. I haven't really seen her do anything impressive, but she's playing, pretty fine, Her style's going to win. And the flop was jack 6 with 2 hearts. She check calls 90. So now the pot is around 400. I think the turn's an 8 and she checks. And I checked, but I was not doing this as a give up. I mean, I felt I could still rep a real hand on the river because I think I can level her here and I expect her to just have a lot of small, medium pocket pairs, maybe some big ones. But the river was quite unexpected because it's another jack. That definitely fucks with this a little since it'll be harder to rep jack X in addition to all the other hands. But then even more surprisingly, she bet. I mean, she bet 175 and I didn't think she would do this with a bluff or 10s or 9s. I actually thought pocket queens was the likeliest hand she'd get here with. I didn't have the ace of diamonds, so that means I didn't block the one ace-jack suited combo of quads, so I guess she could have that, but I really didn't think so with that size. No way. So I thought about jamming 1,200. I think it's actually really good here to rep aces, kings, or ace-jack because I just don't think her value size is ever going to be something better than those. Well, obviously not better than ace-jack, but just, I don't know, just looked very, very, looked very good. So I can jam, and I think raising to 700, is also highly suggestive of that story. And, I wanted to do it, but then it's late, and it had already been a bad night, and it was just hard to pull the trigger on this one. So I fold, and I just let her have it, and on a different night, I may have made it happen, because on nights where you're winning and you feel better about things, you feel like you can see what's going to happen, and you sort of do the same thing when you're losing too. You don't feel good and you think everything is going to go wrong and that people are just going to think you're getting desperate and just play perfectly against you. So you just take the light way out of it and fold, telling yourself it's okay to fold when you're beat. But it's also possible I'm all mistaken about all this. I mean, if she only had like 9s or 10s, then I'm kind of grossly overestimating the way she's going to play against me, in the sense that I thought she might get the idea that I was repping a trap when I checked the turn. But if she thinks I'm just giving up, and that's why she fires out this like small bet on the 3 jacks river with like 9s or 10s now, trying to get called by ace high, trying to make me think maybe she missed a jar or something. I mean, if that's what she did, that's bad. If she's betting the river with like only 9s or 10s, that means she's saying, I don't think you have any value checks on the turn with queens or whatever. So if she's leading because she has queens and has a very strong hand, then not only may I get curious calling with ace high, which is probably bad, but like not only does she have that in her mind, maybe she thinks I can call with 10s or jacks too. So only she knows. So that was a bad night. I almost lost. I lost about 2,400. I almost didn't even come in to play that night, but I'm still glad I did. I was in a great spot. And that brings us to Saturday. Another day I almost didn't come in because I tend to take at least one day off after having a really rough day. I've found that's generally pretty smart. But it's not necessarily imperative you always do that, because it's Saturday. And most of all, I just wanted to fucking play. So I show up late afternoon. My first game was dog shit, so I transferred right away, and the game I transferred into was very enticing. The star attraction of the game was this really, really old guy, who I think is some type of Middle Eastern. He looks and sounds like Blue from the movie Old School. Actually, I didn't think Old School was that funny, but he does resemble the character. Now, I've been playing with Blue for a few years, and he's one of the biggest fish I've ever seen. He usually buys in like 500 and dusts off a few bullets and leaves. It's unusual to see him leave with money. But the first time I played with him a few years ago, night after night for a while, he would be like really quiet and then suddenly get very mean and belligerent. And he stopped in the last couple of years, so I'm pretty sure the floor talked to him enough times about this. The first time I ever heard him speak, he suddenly shouted, "I'm 97 years old!" And I guess maybe he thought this just gave him some leeway in being like nasty and temperamental. Like, for instance, this one time, and I was glad he did this, there are these 2 fucking dickheads who are just yapping during a hand. One of them's holding up the game, it's their turn. And Blue, who's been silent, he just shouts, "Play now, talk later!" So he's not there to just fuck around and waste what little time he obviously knows he has left. I mean, I've heard him yell, "Hey, jackass!" at people. But, I mean, it's just someone you just can't wait to play with every time you see him come in, and for all these reasons. He's sharp as a tack, I think at least, as far as like interaction goes. But as a poker player, oh my God. I mean, the guy just is completely all over the place, staggering around. He plays so bad. He plays so fucking bad. And then he gets tilted. He used to run pretty good against me for a while, and it was getting pretty fucking frustrating. But at some point, things turned, and I've run hot against him for a while and won a lot of money from him in spots that were just unreal. So anyway, he's 2 seats to my left because there were a couple other deep stacks that I preferred to have on my right, so I just felt it was worth giving up that position on him just because he's so bad. So the straddle is on. Someone limps middle position, and I make it 45 with Queen Jack offsuit, and Blue calls the small blind, and it goes heads up. He checks in the dark. I check. He raps the table. I check! Does that a lot against me. I didn't hit the flop especially hard. It was 8-5 deuce with 2 diamonds, and I got the queen of diamonds. All right, got something going on here, possibly. I bet 65, and he check raises to 130, and he's deep, by the way. And one of the rare times he is, so it's a real treat just to have a shot at him when he's this deep. He had at least 2,000 instead of his normal 500, and he covered me. And in hindsight, I can probably maybe 3-bet bluff this flop because I know this is just going to be another typical ridiculous line and ridiculous random hand from blue, but if I do 3-bet this flop, I know I'm going to have to blast off because he is not going to fold to a re-raise here. I don't care what he has. I don't know what he has. No idea. He's not folding to a 3-bet. Maybe if I jam, but that just doesn't seem like something I have to do. Because he stacks off extremely light in huge spots when he thinks he has something good, but is way overvaluing it. For instance, like I think last year we played a pot where single raise pot, the flop was ace, queen, jack, and he check raised me with aces and jacks, and I 3-bet because I flopped the nuts. Then he jammed for like 1,500. So that's the kind of stuff blue will do. He says, oh, I flopped 2-pair, and he's just going to go apeshit with it. And every time he gets stacked, he just stares at the table with his mouth open, kind of like suggestive of this mild amusement. He never really complains or shows any emotion unless he takes a bad beat. But either way, then he reloads or just goes home. But then at one point he disappeared for a few months, suddenly, and I just assumed he died. I didn't ask anybody, but if he really was 97 3 or 4 years ago, then the clock is not something you expect to tick too much longer for this guy. But hey, you never know. Who knows how fucking old he is. Alright, so anyway, 8-5 deuce, 2 diamonds. He checks and min clicks me. Just call. I got position. We're deep. Let's just play. Turn was pretty solid. It's a 10 of diamonds. I got a flush draw and a gut shot now. Now he bets 130 into about 240. Okay. It's weird again, but got to call again. So a lot of rivers I can win on besides the one that improved my hand. But I don't get there. I brick with a 7. And it looked like he was going to bet, but then he checked. And blue makes a lot of really small bets on the river with really bad hands on really bad runouts because he just doesn't seem to know what to do ever in these spots, but he just doesn't want to check, so he just vomits out this little bet and hope he doesn't get killed for it. But this time he checked. And if he's checking, he's got to have what I kind of put him on this whole hand, which is some weird-ass, light-ass hand. Don't try and figure out what it is. Just accept that it's light. There's 500 out there. And blue has to know I've bonked him over the head a few times. And even though he does stack off light, he can fold sometimes too. He will fold to massive bets when he has like just a really weak 1-pair hand on a really bad board. That's usually what it takes to get him to fold, but he'll do it when you get to the river and there's no more cards left. Because there have been times I tried to hit him hard with a big hand, but he didn't call. So the pot's got 500. I'm deep. He's extremely likely to be weak, so I jam. Probably about 1275, I think, give or take. And then blue snap calls. Whoa, what the hell? I say, you got it. And I turn my hand over, and he turns over black pocket 7. So in typical blue fashion, he check raised the flop with a pocket pair, which was 1 rank below the top pair. No backdoor flush draw. Gets a terrible turn card, but bets anyway, more than half the pot. Then somehow sneakily winds up with a much better hand, hitting this 7, which wasn't a diamond. He hits a set here without getting beat by a flush. And now he doesn't bet? I mean, this is shocking. He bets 2 pairs here, 1 pair here. I've seen him show up with all kinds of dumb hands in these kinds of situations using weird sizes, just erring on the small side because he doesn't know what else to do. But now he checked. And today he runs into the perfect spot where I ended up missing everything, and I'm just going after his tendencies, so I bluff, going as massive as I can. And like I said before, when he flopped aces and jacks, he's not going to fold hands in spots like this. So if I had value here, I'm getting it, even when he hits an incredible 1-outer to improve his hand and not be against a 4 flush. So boy, did lightning strike the same spot in this hand or what? I mean, and when the table sees me do this, it's not like they're really licking their chops and thinking, ooh, yay, we get to play with this freaking spaz. We can calm down with so much different shit. We're all going to get rich. No, they're thinking two things. They're thinking, one, wow, okay, so this guy will put the stack in for pots way smaller than the amount he just bet. And they're also thinking, wow, look how hard this guy just got fucked and how unlikely it was that this move fails considering what the guy had. I mean, this sequence of action and cards and everything, I mean, it's just okay. It's just one of the craziest I've had in a long time. So here's Blue, all 80 pounds of him, stacking me in a pot that surely got over $3,000. Now, as far as my jam goes, well, that was actually not necessary. It's not really good. I think it's fine for me to go big, even really big just to be sure, like, maybe upwards of 800. But the jam is too much. I have no problem losing a lot of money on this river to this situation, but it doesn't have to happen for everything. Because if I wander into something like this or some goofball two-pair that he suddenly just decides to check, even though he usually wouldn't, I'm going to lose everything. Now, it's extremely unlucky and also rare that he hit this card and checked, but it's why you don't need to jam. But I see why I did. It's just kind of to make sure I win, because nothing tilts me more than losing a bluff from going too small. I mean, everyone is always trying to mitigate their bluff sizes so that they don't need as high a success rate and will lose as much when they're picked off, but I've never really looked at it that way. I mean, especially with the way players respond to me. They tend to fold a lot when I go big and call a lot when I don't. I look for spots where I don't have to bluff that big and don't bluff that big. And same where I can go huge for value and I do. But the general response from the pool doesn't get too involved when I go ham, and I guess it probably doesn't for most players. And there have been a lot of bluffs I won where I probably went much bigger than I had to. If the pot had 150 and I bet like 280, I mean, maybe 175 was all I needed. But I don't know that, and I guess I just figure if bluffs are working pretty consistently, then I figure the sizes I'm picking are probably appropriate. But God, this was... sheesh. So this is my fourth straight session now where terrible things have been happening if you include the 510. So I've reloaded, I'm in for 3K, and this game is really good, and I know I'll be able to win some pots bigger than I'd normally be entitled to because I have this image. Now, Blue lost some of that money back, but he wasn't given too much action after that, and I mean, that's something pretty common when big fish are finally having a good day. They don't want to just blow it. They want to hang on to it for a little while, maybe even leave with it. We played a couple more hands, but nothing got crazy. And then he left. But before he did, I got pocket eights and raised to 25, and Blue called. I started opening bigger after the bluff to Blue, and then this fishy, new-face, young Asian guy, 3-bet to 110. He looks like a rec player. Then there was a cold call of the 110, and I called, and Blue folded. So the flop was Jack 6-4, 2 spades, and we all check. And this wasn't the first time this 3-better had been aggressive at the start of a hand, but then slowed down. So he could have 9s or 10s, but he also could have a lot of whiffs. The turn is a 9. Big blind checks again. And this might be a little loose, but I don't know. I got the feeling I had the big blind beat, so I bet 125. Button calls and the big blind overcalls. Interesting. River is another 9. That's a good card at least. Big blind checks, I check, and the button bets 325, which was under half pot. The big blind folds, and really just didn't think there could be any value with this size or with this line. I've told many angry stories of having a bluff image and think I'm setting up a guy, but instead he just has a cooler. Well, this time I think I got him without a big hands. I call and he's got ace-queen. Okay, yay, I win. And this is a perfect example of how, even when you lose a big bluff, you can still win a lot more later with the best hand in spots that you shouldn't. And this guy with ace-queen 3-bets, and he flops nothing in position multi-way. Doesn't turn anything either, but then he feels like he can't just fold to me because of what he saw me do before, even though he's in a spot where calling is going to be pretty spewy, because he's going to be in deep shit a lot and continue to be even more deep shit on the river, even if he improves sometimes. So I felt alive again after that hand. Battled on for a little longer, and then I got myself out of the hole and was even. I got myself pretty dialed in after losing that bluff, and it was playing good. I mean, not really running amazing, but getting spots I could do some poker with, and I was doing it. So now this Indian sits to my left. Never seen him before. And if I haven't said it already, Indians are probably the fishiest ethnicity of all, and I don't really think it's that close. I mean, I don't know where blue is from, but just any Middle Eastern, that part of the world, the percentage of players who are absolutely atrocious is noticeably high. I don't know what it is, but that's just the way it is, even though there's certainly some great Indian pros and other Middle Eastern pros. But anyway, I raised to 35 with pocket kings, the straddles on. The Indian fellow seemed like a nice guy. He calls a middle position. He's already up a little bit, but seemed like he was going to be very loose pre and probably nitty post-flop. We go heads up. The flop is Jack 7-4 rainbow. I bet 50 and he calls. Turn is another 4. Still no flush draws. And I decide to check and he bets small, only 55. Thought that was a pretty odd size to pick. I mean, I figured he probably doesn't have just a jack, so it's either something that's really weak or it could be really strong. It wasn't here that long. So whatever, I just check raise to 190 and he quickly goes all in. Sigh. It was only about 485 more, which was still somewhat big compared to the pot, but it was under the pot. And, I wasn't feeling too good about this, but I think I just gotta call and live with this and just hope to see either Jack 7 or just some massive spaz with any Jack X, but he's got Ace 4 offsuit. Doubles up after hitting this 2-outer, not to make the better hand, but to get this kind of action on the turn, putting me right back in it. So the night before, we have this idiot limping the button with pocket 7s and then turning a set and then being scared to win the pot with it, and by not betting the river. We got blue hitting a 1-outer set on the river to create a scenario where I end up bluffing the whole thing to him in a spot he'd normally just bet. And at that point, I would just fold. And now this. And this is all after this banana shit that happened at 5-10 and 2 days before that in 2-5. I mean, this is 4 straight days of having all kinds of fucked up shit, and I showed the most emotion I had in a while when I lost this hand. I didn't look at anybody, and I didn't curse under my breath or even say anything. I did not say a word. But after I paid the pot off and was just rearranging my chips and stuff like that, I was just like slamming my chips and wearing all this disgust in my face. If I was a baseball player, I'd be, going into the dugout and bashing the shit out of the water cooler. That's what I wanted to do. But no one said a word to me. Give them credit for that, because I didn't do anything that deserved to be told anything. I was handling it all myself. But when I'm getting fucked like this, I don't feel an obligation to the table to never, ever act like this. I mean, I wouldn't do it at a home game, but here, fuck that. If I want to be mad about this, I'm going to be mad. It's not my job to smile when I'm losing big pot after big pot after big pot to 1-outers, 2-outers, 2-outers, 1-outers, whatever the fuck. One final hand of interest. One of the regs who saw me lose the big bluff to blue had raised to 60 from the small blind with the straddle on still. I called the big blind with ace-queen off and the straddle folded. Flop was 10-9-3 rainbow and he checked. I bet 75 and he called. Whenever people raise pre and start checking, it's almost like an invitation to start barreling. When you consider how often it leads to them folding at some point. Turn is a 6 and he checks again. I bet 230. And he takes his time for a little while and he calls again. And the river is another 3 and he checks. And I'm getting really tempted like I did before with the pocket 3s hand where I felt like I should have barreled but didn't. Well, here once again I wanted to do it, but something felt off. I mean, something about the way he took his time and called the turn. He did raise really big pre-flop. I started wondering if there's a good chance he has a huge hand and is just taking a good line by just checking over to me. I haven't bluffed big in a while, but he knows I'll do it again, especially since it's been a while, and he probably thinks that I can still level him. And I could have 7-8 for the nuts, but it's hard for me to have a 3. So, there's just not a lot of huge hands here I can rep. I mean, I guess I could rep 10s or 9s, but I don't block either one. Block him from having either one, I should say. I block aces and queens, and plus he could also just have ace-king, and that's what was really tempting me to hammer and scaring me the most about being shown if I don't. But if he has an overpair, I can't even rep 10-9 anymore, because now he beats that. The pot had like 700, at least 700. I think it had more. He had about 1100, and I covered him. So I thought about jamming once again, because I was thinking again how sick I'm going to be if I check down and lose to some bullshit, but I was a little more tuned in this time, and I just check, and he has kings. Okay, nice hand. And he says, good check. So, yeah, if I jammed, he's just going to close his eyes and call. If I have it, I have it. I didn't think this guy was like this fantastic player, but based on anything else I saw. But this hand, he was on the money. He picked the floating numbers out of the air perfectly, and it almost worked to the max. Even as played, he still got 2 streets, so good for him. People don't do that very much. Most of them would have just blasted it off right into the flop and just made me fold right there. He might have been thinking about check raising the turn when he was taking so long because, he doesn't want to get a bad river, but I still agree with his choice. You can just call and deal with whatever comes. And it turned out to be a pretty damn good river for his hand as it's pairing the bottom card. He can beat some of the value now if I have 10-9. I think I said that already. So I got myself stuck 1500 after stacking off the blue, got out of it, then got stuck 1500 again. Continued to run bad against the guy who cracked my kings with ace-4, and all I got back was a little pittance. So another losing day. And if you don't count the 5-10 session, this is the roughest 3-day stretch I've had at 2-5 in an extended while, probably a year and a half. So I'm a little shell-shocked, a little overwhelmed. Feels like I'm playing a lot worse than I probably am. But a lot of critical things have gone very wrong. And you combine that with a few misjudgments, and here we are. But just gotta stay calm and regroup. It's okay. It's not like I haven't done this a zillion times, right? But there's like this amnesia to losing, especially when it pours on all at once. I mean, it just never seems to get any easier, and you always start to just lose your sense on how to win. Like you can't even picture a scenario anymore where something can just work out for you. It just like you just like feel like you've been doom switched. But then one day you start winning, and you're just like, oh yeah. And then you just feel stupid for having ever been worried about it at all. But all right. On to the next one. We'll see you next time.